Anthony M. Elmore, President and Founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. It is now Black History Month in America, and today we are going to give you an exciting Black History Month lecture. Rather, we're going to give you a Buddhist Black History Month lecture. You should understand that Buddhist history is Black history because the Buddhists were the Black people of India. And we're going to give you the real deal and give you a Buddhist Black history lesson. Let us begin by giving you the history. Buddhism did not start in Japan or China. Buddhism started in the country of India. And the original people of India were called Naga. When you study the historical texts, you read in the Vedas, you read about the Nagas. The Nagas were the people who were associated with the snake. They were Nagas. Some people call the Nagas Dravidians. Now, the word Naga, or the people of the language of the people, was called Tamil. Now, the word Tamil was Sanskritized by the people who spoke Sanskrit, and they took the word Tamil and called it Damila. And Damila eventually became the word Dravila, and it eventually came to be the word Dravidian. So the people of India, who they call the Sutras or the Nagas, they were one and the same people. They were the Black Buddhists, and the Buddhists of India were the Nagas, or the Black people. So when you study Black history, or Buddhist history, you are studying Black history. Now, one of the most exciting things that we're going to show in this lecture today, we're going to show you how Japanese Buddhist organizations like the SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu use racism, or they use institutional racism to extricate all of the Black history from Buddhism. Imagine, Buddhism is Black history, but the Japanese, especially Daisaki Keita, extricated all of the Black history from Buddhism. And the way that he did, he used the language of Sanskrit. Nichiren Shonin is the founder of our proud Black Buddhist Sect, was a Japanese born February 16, 1222. We note that Nichiren Shonin is a Bodhisattva Jogo of Bodhisattva severe practices, the first of the four leaders of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, who appeared from beneath the earth and emerging from the earth, 15th chapter Lotus Sutra. Shakyamuni transfers the essence of the sutra to those Bodhisattvas headed by superior practices and the supernatural powers, or the 21st chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren Shonin was a true Bodhisattva who was a Japanese who made sure that he relayed to the Black people in his writings. Nichiren Shonin wrote in the Gosho, Letter from Sato, and Banner from Sato, that he was from the Chandela family, a son of a Chandela family. The Japanese racists argued that Nichiren Shonin meant that was poor. Nichiren Shonin was a prolific writer, and he understood that there would be racists or those who would maliciously use his name. Nichiren Shonin made sure that he was connected with us Black people via calling himself a Chandela. The Chandela were the Black people of India called outcasts who were discriminated against. They faced the worst inhumanity to humanity in the history of mankind. Today, they still face discrimination even from Nichiren sects in India who side with Brahmin Teachings or Hindu Buddhism. One of the ways to discover the clear-cut institutional racism from the Japanese Nichiren sects is their association and identification with the language of Sanskrit. In the Gosho writings of Nichiren Shonin, he rarely or never used the word Sanskrit. Sanskrit was the language used by the racist Brahmins or Hindu priests in India. Sanskrit is an artificial language that was never spoken by common people in India. In fact, in ancient India, the laws of Manu, it was mandated that if a Chandela heard the Brahmin sacred teachings melted iron should be poured in his ears. If a Chandala looked at a Brahmin in the eyes, his eyes would be torn out. If a Chandala could hear the words of the Brahman's molten coal iron be poured into his ears, a Chandala had to tie a broom onto his behind because he could not walk where a Chandala made steps. He had to tie a broom onto him. He had to carry a cup if he made steps because it's considered polluted. A Chandala could only own a donkey or a dog. This was the relationship that we have with the Hindu, Brahmin, or the Sanskrit teachings. The SGI and once Nichiren Shoshu Japanese Buddhist sects identify with the racist Sanskrit language, although Nichiren Shonin rarely, if ever, mentioned Sanskrit. The question that we ask is, why is the SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren Shu, and Middle Japanese so closely aligned with Sanskrit? The Lotus Sutra that Nichiren Shonin preached was translated by the Tipitaka master Kulama Jiva.
Please understand that the Lotus Sutra that we use, that Nichiren Shonin used, that translated from India to Chinese, the Indian language to Chinese, was done by the Tipitaka master Kulama Jiva. Now, understand that Kulama Jiva, when he translated the Lotus Sutra from the Indian language to the Chinese language, he did not transfer the language using Sanskrit. You must understand this. Now, let's go into this very carefully. Kulama Jiva, when he translated the Lotus Sutra, he did not translate the Lotus Sutra from the language of Sanskrit. Now, understand, it is Black History Month, and this is a Black History lecture, and we want to teach you Black history. Now, one of the things that you must understand, that there are two types of Buddhism. There is the Buddhism of Shakyamuni Buddha, and there is the Hindu Buddhism of the Brahmins. The Brahmins later on had to accept Buddhism because the Buddhist teachings spread it all over India. And the Brahmins were very wise and wily kind of people. So what they did was the Brahmins incorporated the Buddha into the Hindu pantheon. And when they incorporated the Buddha into the Hindu pantheon, you had different schools of Buddhism. You had the Hindu Buddhism that the Brahmins practiced, because they made the Buddha subservient to the god Brahma. Now, in understanding this, you must understand there are different types of Buddhism. Now, the Hindu Buddhism was a racist Buddhism in that they made the Buddha white. Buddhism was originally a black religion. It was the black people, it was the indigenous people of India who practiced Buddhism, and the Buddha fought against the caste system. And what you had was you had two parallel types of Buddhism going at the same time, where the Brahmins recreated the story and they created a white Buddha. And everything about their teachings was done in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a racist language of the Brahmins. It's a racist language of the Hindu. Now, let's get back to the SGI let's get back to Nichiren Shu and Nichiren Shoshu. You must understand that the Nichiren sects, they teach or they relate to Hindu Buddhism. So when you relate to Hindu Buddhism, that means this is a white Buddhism, and the white Buddhism clearly extricates all of black people from Buddhism. The Hindus made the Buddha white, they made the history white, and they extricated black people because the Hindus believed in a caste system. The caste system was a system to where they made black people last. They actually enslaved the black people. Now, when you get to the Buddhism of the SGI, or Nichiren Shoshu, or Nichiren Shu, they teach that the Buddha spoke Sanskrit. They teach about the Sanskrit language, and they say that the word Namu, where Nam Myoho Renge Kyo comes from, is a Sanskrit word. But ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to do is get your Gosho out. Read in the Gosho what Nichiren Shonin writes in the Gift of Rice. He says the word Namu, and he explains the word Namu in the Gift of Rice. Nichiren Shonin says the word Namu is an Indian word. He never said that Namu was a Sanskrit word. In fact, I want you to do a Google search. Search the SGI website. You will find that Nichiren Shonin almost never used the word Sanskrit. He never used the word Sanskrit. He never talked about the word Sanskrit. And the Buddha did not speak in the language of Sanskrit. It is only the Japanese Nichiren sects that teach that the Buddha spoke in Sanskrit, because it is the Japanese sect that is closely identified with the Brahmins. They teach a Brahmin type of Buddhism. And what you find in the Japanese sects, you find a Buddhism that extricates black people from Buddhism. The reason they extricate black people from Buddhism, because they associate with the language of Sanskrit. Sanskrit, ladies and gentlemen, is not a friendly language to black people. Sanskrit is a language that the racist Brahmins use to discriminate. If a black person even heard the words of Sanskrit, coal, iron reported to his ears, because they were not able to use Sanskrit. The founder who wrote India's constitution, Bhimrao Ambedkar, was not able to use or study Sanskrit because he was a Chandala. He was from the lower caste, and they did not let lower class people learn and study what they call the sacred or the racist language of Sanskrit. But ladies and gentlemen, what you must understand, that Daisaki Keita, the SGI and Nichiren Shu teach a Buddhism where they pride themselves on Sanskrit. They pride themselves on Sanskrit because they identify with Hindu Buddhism. Now, if you want to learn black history, then you must study a Buddhism that teaches freedom, justice, and equality, and you must understand the history of Buddhism. Let's get into the history of Buddhism a little bit. Now, after the Buddha died, King Ajahn called the 500 Buddhists together, and they got together, and everybody got together,
and they began to understand and put order into Buddhism. But Buddhism was not written down at the time. It was only about in the 880 BC that the Buddhist teachings were wrote down, ladies and gentlemen. And when the Buddhist teachings were wrote down, it was not written down in Sanskrit. The Buddhist language, ladies and gentlemen, was written down in Pali or Sanskrit. The language was not written in Sanskrit because at the time the Brahmins had not accepted the Buddha. It was only later on that they accepted the Buddha. When Kilimajava translated the Lotus Sutra into Chinese, there was no Sanskrit version of the Lotus Sutra, because the earlier versions, he translated the Lotus Sutra from the earlier versions, not from the Sanskrit versions, because he translated from the original language. And the original language of the Buddha was not Sanskrit, but it's Sanskrit. It was not Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a dialect that they spoke in the Buddhist country of Magadha. So you must get an understanding if you want to understand Buddhism. You must understand that the SGI in Nichiren Shoshu, they teach or they identify with a racist Buddhism. Their racist Buddhism talks about Sanskrit. Now, if you want to get an understanding, Nichiren Shonin never speaks of Sanskrit in the Go Show. But if you take the word Tipikata, the Tipikata, now in Sanskrit is called Tripikata. Tripikata means the three baskets. And the Vijnana of the first basket, if you want to learn Black history, you would understand that Buddhism was in Africa 1,000 years before it was even in Japan. We can show you, if you look on my prayer book here, and you look on this prayer book, you will see the Amphitheatric Temple, because the Buddhists were called Gymnosophists, and the ancient Buddhas in Ethiopia, in Nubia, in Egypt, they practiced Buddhism. They practiced Buddhism, and they taught in a language called Kharosthi script. In the Via Pataka, when you read this, you will find they talk about the Brahmins. And the Brahmins are the people in Muro or in Nubia. And they mention this in the Vita. You can see this, ladies and gentlemen. You can see it. It's right there, because that's Black history. But if you study Buddhism from the standpoint of the Japanese or the SGI or Nichiren Shoshu, they relate to Hindu Buddhism, and that's why they are closely associated with the language of Sanskrit. Let's bring our Black Buddhist history lecture to a close. Now, what we've taught you about the Nagas. The Nagas were the original people of India, or they were the indigenous people of India. They were called Nagas. Some of them called Dravidians. They also are the Nubian people. So there are different names, but they are one and the same people. In conclusion, I want you to understand something else about the Naga. Throughout history, there was Naga Sangha, there was Naga Juna. The Nagas were the Buddhists, and they were the original indigenous people of India, and they were the Nagas. One thing that I want to conclude this lecture with, I want you to know that the first black revolutionary hero in the history of our world was the Buddha, because the Buddha taught the first egalitarian religion that was equal for men, women, everyone. No matter what color you were, the Buddha fought for equality of all. Now, those who are associated with the Sanskrit language, you would also understand that they are the people who extricate the teachings of Black history from Buddhism. That's why if you are a member of the SGI or the Nichiren Shoshu or Nichiren Shu, you cannot go to a leader or one of those leaders and ask them anything about Black history, because they have extricated all of the Black history. When you study India and you learn about the Ganges River, the Ganges River was named after an Ethiopian general by the name of Ganges, because India was once known as Eastern Ethiopia. I think we've done enough. I think you now have a good understanding of it. I am Anthony M. Elmore, President and Founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. We're the most suited. We are the Proud Black Buddhists. I'm going to close it out with my rap song, Black Buddhist History Rap Song. Anthony M. Elmore, we're the most suited. We are the Proud Black Buddhists. Have a happy and glorious Black History Month. Thank you very much.
All ancient icons show a simple fact. They all show that the Buddha was black. I believe in facts and Akeda was wrong. Buddha was no Aryan. This song saw the history by those who rewrite history.